I never thought I'd be standing in my own kitchen at 59, watching my world collapse in real time. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers. It wasn't a tremble. It was a violent, full-body rejection of what my eyes were seeing. The ceramic, a gift from my son Julian, shattered against the terracotta tiles, spraying dark coffee and white shards across the floor. I didn't look down. I couldn't. My gaze was locked through the glass-paneled door, across the patio, to the pool house. There they were. My husband of 32 years, Robert, with his hands tangled in my daughter-in-law's hair, Livia, Julian's wife of 5 years, the woman I'd welcomed into our family, helped plan her wedding, bought Christmas gifts for, the woman who called me Mom and hugged me every Sunday dinner. My legs buckled. I slammed my hand onto the granite countertop to stay upright, my knuckles turning white against the polished black stone. This couldn't be real. It was a sick nightmare, a hallucination brought on by stress. But the 4 o'clock sun was unforgiving, streaming through the window and illuminating every horrifying detail. Robert's wedding ring, the one I'd placed on his finger, catching the light as his hands roamed her body. Livia's laugh, a sound I'd always thought was light and bubbly, drifting through the partially open glass door. How long? That was the only word that formed in my mind. How many Sunday dinners had I sat across from them, serving pot roast and asking about their week while they shared this secret? How many times had Livia hugged me goodbye, her expensive perfume lingering in my nostrils, and I never knew it was also on my husband's sheets? I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, time suspended, stretched thin. It was that agonizing moment before a car crash, where you see the headlights swerving into your lane, but you're powerless to stop it. The sound of the pool house door sliding open snapped me back. They were walking toward the main house, toward me. I scrambled to clean up the broken mug, my hands shaking so violently I could barely grasp the larger pieces. A sharp edge sliced into my palm. Blood welled up, dripping onto the floor, mixing with the spilled coffee. I was bleeding in my own kitchen while my marriage bled out on the patio. The back door opened with its familiar squeak. I'd been asking Robert to fix that hinge for months. Petty. So petty. Paige? Robert's voice carried that false, casual tone I now recognized. How many lies had been delivered in that exact voice? What happened in here? It smells like a coffee shop. I looked up from the floor, still kneeling among the broken ceramic. Livia stood just behind him, her lipstick slightly smeared, her hair beautifully mussed. She had the audacity to look concerned. "Oh my God, Mom, are you hurt?" Livia rushed forward, her hand reaching for my bleeding one. I jerked away from her touch as if she were poison. "Don't. Call me that." The words came out as a raw whisper, but they hit like a sonic boom in the quiet kitchen. Livia's face crumpled into practiced confusion. Robert's jaw tightened. "Paige, what's wrong with you?" Robert demanded. "She's just trying to help." I stood slowly, the broken pieces of my son's gift scattered at my feet. "I saw you." 3 words. That's all it took. Robert's face went pale, then flushed a dark, angry red. Livia stepped backward, bumping into the kitchen island. Saw what? Robert's voice was different now, harder. The mask was slipping. "In the pool house," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I saw you. With her. I saw everything." The silence that followed was a living thing, a vast cold canyon opening between us. I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking, marking the final seconds of my marriage. Livia started crying. Not the quiet, dignified tears of shame, these were loud, dramatic, gulping sobs. "It's not what you think, Mom. We were just..." "Stop lying to me." The words exploded out of me with a force that surprised us all. "I have eyes, Livia. I know what I saw." Robert stepped forward. For a single stupid heartbeat, I thought he might try to comfort me, apologize, beg. Instead, his face twisted into something I'd never seen before, a cold reptilian calculation. "So what if you did?" His voice was ice. "What are you going to do about it? If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you." The question hit me like a physical blow. What was I going to do? I'd never prepared for this. In 32 years, infidelity was a word for other couples, for daytime television. Robert was steady, reliable. He coached Little League, did the Sunday crossword, and fell asleep on the sofa watching the History Channel. I'll tell Julian, I stammered. It was the only weapon I had. Livia's sobs intensified into a wail. "No, please don't, Paige, please, it will destroy him." "You should have thought of that before you destroyed his marriage," I shot back, the words tasting like acid. Robert laughed, an actual barking laugh that chilled my blood. "Tell Julian, go ahead," he sneered. "See how that works out for you." There was a confidence in his tone, a terrifying certainty that suggested he'd already run this calculation. He was 3 steps ahead. "What do you mean?" "I mean, who do you think he's going to believe, Paige?" Robert said, stepping closer. "His loving wife and his devoted father, or his bitter, jealous mother who's always been just a little too involved in his relationship?" The room spun. Bitter? Jealous? "Robert, what are you talking about?" "Oh, come on, Paige, we've all seen it," he said, his voice dropping into a tone of false sympathy. "The way you look at Livia, how you comment on her clothes, her cooking, her housekeeping. You've never thought she was good enough for Julian. It was like being hit with a bucket of ice water. Yes, I'd had concerns. She was young when they married, and she'd never held a job for more than a few months. But I'd tried to be supportive, to welcome her. I couldn't form a coherent sentence. "Face it, Paige," Robert said, pressing his advantage. "You're a lonely, middle-aged woman who's jealous of her daughter-in-law's youth. This fantasy you've cooked up about an affair is just your way of trying to break them apart." Livia, on cue, nodded through her tears. "I've always felt like you resented me, Mom, but I never thought you'd make up something like this." I was drowning, gaslit in my own kitchen. These 2 people, my family, were painting me as a lunatic. My kitchen, where I'd made thousands of meals, hosted holidays, kissed skinned knees. It felt like a stage, and I was the only one who didn't know my lines. You're gaslighting me," I whispered, the word feeling small and useless. "I know what I saw." "You saw what your sick mind wanted to see," Robert said, his voice cold as steel. "Livia was upset about something, and I was comforting her. If you twisted that into something inappropriate, that's your problem, not ours." The front door slammed, heavy footsteps in the hallway. Julian. He was home from the law firm. "Hey, everyone," his voice called from the foyer. "Why does it smell like stale coffee in here? Mom? Dad?" I looked at Robert and Livia. This was it. My last chance to tell the truth before they could spin their web around my son. But Robert's eyes held a warning, a cold, hard promise of what he would do. "In here, honey," Livia called out, her voice miraculously clearing. She wiped her tears and straightened her hair. "Your mom had a little accident with her coffee mug." Julian appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in his navy suit, his briefcase in hand. My son. My baby boy, now a successful, confident man, the pride of my life. "Mom, what happened?" he asked, his eyes falling to the broken ceramic and the blood on my hand. "Are you bleeding?" Before I could answer, Livia threw herself into his arms. "Oh, Julian, I'm so worried about your mom. She's been acting so strange lately. She's saying the most terrible things." I watched in pure, unadulterated horror as Julian's protective instincts kicked in. His arm tightened around his wife as he looked at me, his brow furrowed with concern. Not suspicion, concern. For me. "Mom? What's going on?" I opened my mouth to tell him everything, to destroy his world the way mine had just been destroyed. But looking at his face, at the unconditional love and trust in his eyes as he held his crying, treacherous wife, I couldn't find the words. Robert smiled at me over Julian's shoulder. It was the smile of a predator who had successfully cornered his prey. That night, as I lay in the guest room, I couldn't be in our bed, I realized the betrayal was only the beginning. The war had just begun. The campaign to erase me began the very next morning. I woke up to the sound of Robert's voice in the hallway outside the guest room. He was on the phone, his voice low and urgent. "Absolutely, Dr. Matthews. It's the paranoia I'm most worried about. She's making accusations. Yes, completely unfounded. It's been escalating. I just don't know what to do." "Dr. Matthews, our family doctor for 20 years. I opened the door. Robert, still in his pajamas, his phone pressed to his ear, didn't flinch. He just held up a hand, his face a perfect mask of husbandly concern. "I'll have to call you back, doctor. She's awake." He hung up. "Who are you talking to?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Dr. Matthews," he said, not a trace of guilt in his voice. "I'm worried about you, Paige. What I saw yesterday, what you said, it's not like you. I think you need help." "You think I need help?" "You accused me of sleeping with our son's wife, Paige. That's not a rational thought. I'm trying to protect this family, and I'm trying to protect you from yourself." The audacity was breathtaking. He was building his case, laying the foundation of my instability brick by brick. Over breakfast, the atmosphere was suffocating. Robert read his newspaper in pointed silence. I picked at my toast. The phone rang. It was Julian. "Mom, are you feeling okay?" His voice was hesitant. "Livia told me you seemed really confused yesterday, that you broke a mug and were saying things." "Julian, sweetheart, I'm fine, just tired." "Maybe you should see Dr. Matthews," he said, echoing Robert's words. "Just get a checkup. You know, at your age, sometimes stress can cause episodes." Episodes. My son, my 28-year-old son, was suggesting I was having episodes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him and tell him the only episode I'd had was catching his father cheating with his wife. But Robert was watching me from across the kitchen table, his eyes holding that same cold warning. "I'll think about it, honey," I said, my voice dead. The next few days were a blur of calculated isolation. Robert was relentlessly kind. He'd bring me tea I didn't want. He'd put his arm around me in front of Julian, a pantomime of the concerned, long-suffering husband. Livia was even worse. She'd call Julian at work, crying, saying I'd looked at her in a way that made her feel unsafe. I tried to talk to Julian to find a moment alone. I caught him in the driveway as he was leaving for work. "Julian, we need to talk. Without your father. Without Livia." He sighed, his shoulders slumping. He looked tired. "Mom, if this is about you not liking Livia, I really can't handle it right now." "It's not about not liking her, Julian. It's about what I saw. Your father and Livia." "Stop." His voice was sharp, harder than I'd ever heard it. "Mom, stop. I can't listen to you attack my wife anymore. It's not healthy. Dad was right. You're becoming obsessive. He's lying to you. They are both lying to you." I was shouting now, my voice cracking. I sounded unhinged. I knew I did. That was the most brilliant, evil part of their plan. "I'm not obsessed. I'm telling the truth." Livia appeared in the doorway, a robe clutched to her chest, her face a picture of innocent concern. "Julian? Honey, is everything okay?" Julian's entire posture changed. He softened, turning to her. "It's fine, Liv. Go back inside. I'll handle this." He turned back to me, his eyes hard. "See? This is what I'm talking about. You're upsetting her. You're upsetting everyone. Just, please, Mom, get help." He got in his car and drove away. He had sided with them. The vote was 2 against 1. No, 3 against 1. I was alone. The real blow came 3 days later. I had to get out of that house. The air was too thick to breathe. I drove to the grocery store just to do something normal. I walked the aisles, putting things in the cart. Pot roast for Sunday dinner, even though I knew there would be no Sunday dinner. Julian's favorite ice cream. Robert's brand of coffee. My hands were shaking as I loaded items onto the conveyor belt. "That'll be $212.50, the teenage cashier said. I inserted my debit card. The machine beeped angrily. Card declined. I laughed, a small nervous sound. "Oh, that's strange. I must have typed the PIN wrong. Let me try again." Card declined. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the cashier said, her voice kind, embarrassed for me. The line behind me was growing. "Do you have another card?" My face burned. I fumbled for our joint credit card, the one we used for everything. Card declined. I don't understand, I whispered. I fumbled through my wallet for cash. I had $17, not enough for a $212 grocery bill. I'll just take these, I said, my voice thick with humiliation. I pointed to a loaf of bread and a small container of milk. The cart full of food, the life I used to have, remained abandoned. The drive home was a blur of cold panic. I ran to the study to our shared computer. I tried to access our online banking. Password incorrect. I tried again and again. He'd changed the password. I tried the backup account, the one we never touched. Access denied. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I pulled up the portal for our investment portfolio, the savings account, my inheritance from my mother, the money I'd put into our joint portfolio with the understanding that it was my safety net. Account balance 0. It was gone, all of it. The front door opened. Robert. He walked into the study, not with a manila folder, but with a smug, satisfied expression. He'd been planning this. This wasn't a reaction to getting caught. This was an execution. "We need to talk," he said. "You're filing for divorce?" I asked, staring at the completed official divorce papers he'd just tossed on the desk. My name was already typed in the spaces marked respondent. "On grounds of mental instability and emotional abuse," Robert said calmly, as if discussing the weather. "Livia is prepared to testify about your increasingly erratic behavior and unfounded accusations." He leaned against the bookshelf, the one I'd stained and sealed myself. "And Dr. Matthews," he continued, "has already noted in your medical file your recent complaints about memory issues and paranoia. He's very concerned." My blood ran cold. What memory issues? What paranoia? I've never complained about any such thing. "Your visit last month, Paige. You told him you'd been feeling scattered, forgetting conversations, worried that people were talking about you behind your back. I remembered that appointment. I had mentioned feeling scattered. I was planning Julian's surprise birthday party and juggling 3 different caterers. I joked about feeling paranoid because our new neighbor had been giving me strange looks. You're twisting everything," I whispered, the full, terrifying scope of his plan settling over me. "I'm protecting myself and my family," he corrected. "This obsession with Livia, these wild accusations about an affair, it's textbook paranoid delusion. The courts will see that." He sounded so reasonable, so concerned. If I didn't know the truth, I might even believe him. "The house will need to be sold, of course," he continued, picking a piece of lint off his suit jacket. "My lawyer recommends I maintain residence here during the proceedings to establish continuity." He'd already emptied the accounts. He'd poisoned my doctor. He'd stolen my son. And now he was taking my home. Where am I supposed to live? The question was pathetic, small. "That's not my problem anymore, Paige," he said, his voice void of all emotion. "I suggest you contact your sister." My sister, who lived in Oregon and who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years after a bitter fight over our mother's funeral. The thought of crawling to her, this broken, humiliated shell of a person, made my stomach turn. "This is all because I caught you," I said, the realization a solid, heavy weight. "You can't destroy my entire life just because I saw you with Livia." Robert's mask slipped. Just for a moment, I saw the cold, calculating rage underneath. "What affair, Paige?" he hissed. "You keep saying that word. But there were no witnesses to this alleged affair, were there? Just you. And given your documented mental health issues, well," he smiled. A thin, cruel smile. "How long?" I asked, my voice flat. "How long have you been planning this? How long have you been with her?" His smile widened. "Long enough, Paige. Long enough to know she's everything you stopped being 20 years ago." Julian helped me pack. He was the one who drove the U-Haul truck. Robert, of course, was too busy at the office, finalizing the legal necessities. Julian's face was a mask of forced cheerfulness that broke my heart more than the betrayal. He believed his father's story, completely. "Mom, maybe this is for the best," he said as we loaded the last of my few boxes. "You and Dad, you've been growing apart for years. Maybe you'll both be happier now." I stopped, holding a box labeled photos. "Julian, there is something you need to know. About Livia. About your father." "Mom, stop." His voice was sharp. "I told you. I can't listen to you attack my wife anymore. It's not healthy for you, or for me." Livia appeared in the doorway of my house, holding a glass of lemonade for Julian. She didn't offer me one. "Julian, honey, don't strain yourself," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Maybe your mom needs some space from the family while she adjusts to this transition." "Space from the family?" I repeated, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. "My family?" "That might be a good idea, Liv," Julian agreed, taking the glass from her and kissing her on the cheek. "Just for a while, Mom, until you're feeling more like yourself." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab my son by his expensive suit lapels and shake him until his teeth rattled. I was feeling like myself. It was everyone else who had turned into a monster. But looking at my son's face, at the way he stood protectively close to his wife, I realized I had already lost him. The apartment I could afford, with the small, insulting pittance Robert's lawyer had graciously allocated for temporary spousal support, was a 400-square-foot studio in the worst part of town. A lifetime of memories, a 3,800-square-foot home reduced to what would fit in a space the size of my former walk-in closet. That first night, sitting on a mattress on the floor because I couldn't afford a bed frame, I stared at a water stain on the ceiling that looked like a screaming face. I wondered how my life had imploded so completely, so efficiently in less than 2 weeks. My new reality had a rhythm. Wake up at 6 a.m., instant coffee, stale bread from the dollar store, job applications until noon. At 59, with a 30-year gap in my resume, the rejections came like clockwork. Overqualified. Not a good fit. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. Afternoons were for walking. Walking was free. It got me out of the suffocating 400-square-foot box that smelled like old carpet and despair. The silence was the worst part. No more phone calls from Julian. I'd tried calling him the first week, but my number went straight to voicemail. I'd left messages. "Honey, it's Mom. Please call me. I just want to hear your voice." He never called back. My friends, the ones I'd hosted for countless dinner parties and book clubs, had evaporated. I'd run into one of them, Martha, at the grocery store. The pity in her eyes was unbearable. "Paige, dear, Robert told us you were unwell. If you need anything..." I'd turned and walked away. Richard had gotten to them too. He'd painted me as the bitter, unstable, cast-off wife. I was invisible, erased. It was a gray Tuesday morning, 3 months, 2 days, and 5 hours since my life had ended. I was tired of walking. I was tired of the silence. I decided to unpack the last box. The one labeled photos. I'd been avoiding it. It felt like archaeology, digging up a life that was dead and buried. The first album was our wedding. Robert, so young, so earnest. Me, radiant, believing in forever. I slammed it shut. Deeper in the box, I found Julian's childhood, his first steps, his kindergarten graduation, Christmas mornings. At the bottom of the box, wedged between two moldering photo albums, was a manila folder I didn't recognize. It was old, yellowed at the edges. Written across the front in faded blue ink was my maiden name, Paige Morrison. I stared at it. I hadn't been Paige Morrison in over 30 years. Who would have a folder with that name? And how had it ended up here? My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents, legal papers, and a letter in my Aunt Clarissa's distinctive, elegant handwriting. My mother's sister, Clarissa, the black sheep, the adventurer. The one who'd never married, who'd traveled the world and sent postcards from exotic locations. She had died alone in Casablanca, Morocco 15 years ago. The letter was dated just 6 months before her death. My dearest Paige, if you are reading this, it means you found yourself in circumstances that require what I like to call an emergency exit from your current life. I've always suspected that Robert wasn't the man you thought he was. I saw the way he looked at you, not as a partner, but as a possession, an asset, and I have prepared for the possibility that you might one day need to escape. My hands started shaking. How? How had she known? How had she seen from thousands of miles away what I had missed for 32 years? I've been living in Casablanca for 2 decades, the letter continued. It has given me perspective. The traditional American life you built is a beautiful prison, Paige. I've set aside resources for you, not because I expected you to need them, but because I wanted you to have what I never did. Options. Real options. Attached to the letter were bank statements, a bank in Casablanca, an account in my maiden name, Paige Morrison. The balance made me gasp. $50,000. Money Clarissa had been depositing for years. Money Robert didn't know existed. Money he couldn't touch. But that wasn't all. There were property deeds. Actual deeds for an apartment in Casablanca's historic district. Photos showed a beautiful space with high ceilings and intricate tile work. Below the photos, a note, "Your sanctuary awaits. The building manager, Hakim, will help you. My dearest friend, Amina, knows to expect you." At the very bottom of the folder was a small sealed envelope. On it, "Open only if you are ready to begin again." Inside was a single prepaid, open-ended plane ticket to Casablanca and a simple 5-word note. Just go. Your real fortune awaits. I sat on my mattress on the floor, surrounded by the ruins of my old life, holding the key to a new one. Clarissa. She had seen. She had known. She had prepared a way out. But could I? I was 59, broke, shattered. How could I just fly to Morocco? I thought about Julian. What if he needed me? What if he finally realized the truth? Then I remembered his last words to me. "Maybe you need some space from the family, Mom." He had given me my answer. I took a deep breath. I was done being a victim. I was done waiting for someone to rescue me. I would rescue myself. The next morning, I was a woman with a plan. I'd spent the night on the floor, the folder my pillow, memorizing the account numbers, the names, Amina, Hakim, the address in Casablanca. I had a goal: get a passport photo, get to the passport office, get to the bank, get to the airport. I was packing my single suitcase, the only thing I planned to take, when there was a knock at my apartment door. I froze. No one knocked on my door. It came again, louder this time, firm, impatient. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. My blood turned to ice. It was Robert. He was standing in the grim hallway of my building, looking impossibly out of place in his tailored suit. "Paige, I know you're in there," he called, his voice muffled. "I just want to talk. I brought some of your mail that was still coming to the house." Mail. That was his excuse. My heart hammered against my ribs. What did he want? Had he found out about Clarissa? No, impossible. I opened the door, just a crack, the security chain still on. "What do you want, Robert?" He held up a stack of envelopes. "Just this. Can I come in? This place is grim, Paige." He looked genuinely concerned. The mask was back on. "No, you can't. Just give me the mail." He sighed, that long-suffering husband sigh. "Paige, please, don't be like this. I'm worried about you. I just want to see that you're okay." He pushed the door, gently, but firmly. The chain strained. "Robert, no." "Paige, don't be hysterical." He pushed harder. The cheap wood of the door frame splintered, the chain popped, and the door swung open. He was in. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I backed away, my heart in my throat. "I'm checking on my unstable wife, which is my right until the divorce is final," he said, his voice dropping, the fake concern gone. His eyes scanned the tiny room. They landed on my packed suitcase, and then on the manila folder on the small table. "What's this?" he said, moving toward it. "More of your paranoid scribblings?" "Don't touch that, it's mine." "Paige Morrison," he read, picking it up. "Going back to your maiden name? A little pathetic, isn't it?" He started to open it. I lunged, trying to grab it from him. "Give it to me, Robert." "That's private." "Private?" He laughed, holding it easily above his head, fending me off with one hand. "We're married, Paige. Nothing is private." He glanced inside. His eyes widened just for a second. He saw the bank statements. He saw the plane ticket. "Casablanca," he said, his voice a low growl. "Aunt Clarissa? That crazy old bat. She left you money?" "It's not your concern," I shrieked, clawing at him. He was no longer playing. He shoved me, hard. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall, my head cracking against the plaster. I slid to the floor, stunned. He looked at the folder. He looked at me, crumpled on the floor. "You're not going anywhere, Paige," he said, his voice flat. "You're not getting a cent." He didn't make a big show of it. He just took it. He tucked the folder under his arm, straightened his suit, and walked to the door. "By the time I'm done with my lawyer," he said, "this little nest egg will be part of the joint marital assets. And since you're mentally unstable, I'll be the one managing it." He paused. "Oh, and I'll be letting the passport office know you're a flight risk. Good luck getting out of the country, Paige." He walked out, closing the door softly behind him, and just like that, my lifeline was gone. I lay on the floor for 10 minutes, maybe 20. My head throbbed. The silence in the room was absolute. He had it. He had the folder. He had the account numbers. He had the deeds. He had the ticket. He had the names. He had stolen my escape. A cold, bottomless despair washed over me. He had won. He'd taken my home, my son, my money, and now my last secret hope. I was 59 years old in a 400-square-foot room with nothing. He was going to freeze the account. He was going to flag my passport. I was trapped here, in this city, in this life, forever. The despair lasted for exactly 1 minute. Then, something else took its place. It started as a low burn in my stomach and rose up, hot and sharp, into my throat. It was fury, pure, undiluted, cleansing rage. He thought he had won. He thought I was the same weak, compliant woman he had spent 32 years molding. He thought that because he had the paper, he had the plan. He was wrong. I had the plan, too. It was seared into my brain. I had memorized the bank name. I had memorized the address of the apartment. I had memorized the 2 names, Amina, Hakim. He had the folder, but I had my passport. I scrambled to my feet. My head spun, but I ignored it. Panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. Action was the only currency that mattered. He said he was going to call his lawyer. He was going to call the passport office. He had a head start. He was in his car, probably already on the phone, setting his plan in motion. I grabbed my purse. My passport was inside. I had my debit card, the one Robert didn't know about, from an old college account I'd kept open with $100 in it. It was almost empty, but it was mine. I didn't take the suitcase. I didn't take anything else. Just my purse, my passport, and the clothes I was wearing. I ran out of the apartment, down the stairs, and into the street. I flagged the first taxi I saw. "Where to, lady?" "The passport office, the main one, and step on it." "You in a hurry?" "My life depends on it." The driver must have seen the look in my eyes because he hit the gas. The ride was agony. Every red light was a personal insult. Every bit of traffic was Robert's conspiracy. He was already calling. He was putting my name on a list. "Paige Morrison, unstable, flight risk, do not issue passport." I got to the passport office. The line was a mile long. I walked straight to the front to the security guard. "Ma'am, you have to wait in line." "It's an emergency," I panted. My mother is dying." "In Morocco. I have to get there tonight." I must have looked insane. My hair was wild. There was probably a mark on my head from the wall. But the guard's eyes softened. He pointed to a different window. "Go there. Emergency processing." It took an hour. An agonizing, clock-ticking hour. I filled out forms. I paid a fee that wiped out my tiny bank account. The woman behind the glass looked at my old passport. "This one is still valid, ma'am." "I know. I need a new one. Now, please." I was begging. She looked at her screen, typing my name. I held my breath. This was it. This was where Robert's flag would show up. She typed. She frowned. She typed again. Nothing. He hadn't been fast enough. Or maybe he'd called his lawyer first, and the lawyer had told him you can't just flag a citizen's passport on a whim. She stamped my forms. "It'll be ready in 2 hours. Wait over there." 2 hours. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my heart beating a rhythm against my ribs. Amina, Hakim, Casablanca. Amina, Hakim, Casablanca. I got the new passport at 3:00 p.m. I ran out of the building. I didn't have a ticket. Robert had the paper ticket. I used the last of my cash to get to the airport. I walked up to the international terminal, a 59-year-old woman with nothing but a purse and a brand new passport. I found the desk for the airline. "I need a ticket," I said to the agent, "to Casablanca tonight." "Ma'am, a last-minute flight like that?" "I don't care what it costs. I just have to be on it." I didn't have any money. This was the last desperate gamble. I pulled out my one remaining credit card, the joint one, the one Robert had declined at the grocery store. "I know this might not work," I said, "but please just try it." She swiped it. I waited. Approved. I almost fainted. In his arrogance, in his haste to cut me off from the checking accounts, Robert had forgotten to cancel the credit card. He probably planned to, but he hadn't done it yet. He'd made a mistake. "You're all set, Mrs." She looked at the ticket. "Mrs. Morrison. Flight leaves in 90 minutes. Gate B12. I walked to security. I didn't look back. I didn't have a suitcase to check. I had nothing but a future he couldn't steal. Stepping off the plane at Casablanca International Airport was like stepping onto another planet. The first thing that hit me was the heat. Not a dry heat, but a living, breathing wall of humidity that made my clothes stick to my skin. The second thing was the smell. A chaotic, wonderful mix of spices, diesel, and something ancient, like dust and history. I stood in the terminal, clutching my purse, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I'd done. 48 hours ago, I was a ghost in a 400-square-foot room. Now I was halfway around the world, in a country where I didn't speak the language, with no money, no luggage, and no plan beyond 2 names. The customs officer looked at my brand new passport with mild interest. "First time in Morocco?" "Yes," I said, my voice a dry croak. "Business or pleasure?" I thought about that. "Starting over," I said. He smiled, a genuine warm smile. He stamped my passport. "Welcome to Morocco, Madame Morrison." Madame Morrison. It felt right. According to Clarissa's letter, the letter I had memorized, someone would be waiting for me. My dearest friend, Amina, knows to expect you. But how? I was a week early. I had no way to contact her. Robert had the folder with her details. I walked into the arrivals hall, scanning the crowd of taxi drivers and families holding signs. My heart sank. This was the flaw in my plan. What if she wasn't here? Then I saw her. She wasn't holding a sign. She was just watching. A woman my age, elegant in a way that seemed effortless, wearing a flowing blue caftan. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back, and her eyes were sharp. Our eyes met, and she broke into a smile. "Paige," she said, approaching me. Her English was perfect, accented but clear. Yes, how did you know?" "Clarissa," she said, taking my arm in a warm, firm grip. She told me, "Amina, if Paige ever comes, she will look like a startled bird who just flew into a window. Be kind to her." I started to cry, right there in the middle of the airport. Not quiet tears, but the shuddering sobs of a refugee. Amina didn't flinch. She just pulled me into a hug. "Ah, good," she said, patting my back. "You are here. You are safe. Clarissa told me you might arrive broken, but Morocco is a good place for healing broken things." Amina's car was old but immaculate. The drive through Casablanca was sensory chaos. Cars followed no rules I could discern, weaving and honking. Street vendors called out, their carts piled high with fruits and breads I didn't recognize. "It's a lot," Amina said, noticing my wide-eyed stare. "But you'll learn to love it. Casablanca doesn't reveal herself quickly, but when she does, she gets into your blood." We stopped in front of a building that looked like a movie set. Cream-colored stone, intricate carved details, iron balconies, and a massive dark wood door. "This is yours," Amina said simply. "Mine?" Clarissa bought this building 20 years ago. She lived on the top floor. She rented the others. The income has been going into your account all this time. She handed me an ornate key. "The top floor. Clarissa's apartment. Your apartment." The building manager, Hakim, a kind-faced man with a warm smile, met us at the door and carried my only luggage, my purse. The apartment door opened to reveal something that took my breath away. High ceilings with exposed wooden beams. Windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, draped in white curtains that billowed in the breeze from the Atlantic. The furniture was an eclectic mix of rich fabrics, dark carved wood, and comfortable modern pieces. But it was the walls that made me gasp. They were covered in photographs, not of tourist spots, but of people. Children playing, old men drinking tea, women at the market, their faces etched with character. Clarissa was a photographer, Amina explained. She said most people come here and see the mosque, but they never see the heart of the country. She spent 20 years capturing that heart. On the nightstand, next to a bed covered in rich, embroidered fabrics, was another letter, with my name on it. "Welcome home, my dear Paige. If you are reading this, it means you found the courage to leave a life that wasn't serving you. I'm proud of you. This isn't charity. This is an investment in a woman I always believed was capable of extraordinary things. You just needed the right circumstances to discover it for yourself." The letter explained everything: the bank, the building, the studio. In the basement, Clarissa had built a professional-grade photography studio and darkroom. Amina helped me get to the bank the next day. The $50,000 was there. Robert hadn't been able to touch it. The account was in my maiden name, with security questions only Clarissa and I would know. I was, for the first time in my adult life, financially independent. Amina took me to dinner that night at a small restaurant owned by her friend, Osman. He brought plate after plate of food: tender lamb tagine, fragrant couscous, salads bursting with herbs. "How did she know?" I asked Amina, sipping sweet mint tea. "How did Clarissa know my marriage was a prison before I did?" Amina was quiet for a moment. "Because she'd lived it," she said softly. "Clarissa was married once, back in America. Her husband was charming, successful, and a master manipulator. He convinced her she was worthless. She left him at 60 with nothing. She came here and rebuilt her entire life from scratch. She was free here. Amina smiled. And freedom, Clarissa used to say, is just another word for happiness. That night, in my new bed, I called Julian. It went straight to voicemail. "Hi, sweetheart, it's Mom. I'm in Morocco. I'm okay. More than okay. I'm safe. I love you. If you ever want to find me, I'll be here." I hung up. And for the first time in 32 years, I slept through the night. 6 months in Casablanca transformed me. The woman who had fled America, broken, terrified, and invisible, was gone. In her place was Paige Morrison. I'd taken up Clarissa's photography. I spent my mornings walking the ancient streets, capturing the faces and stories of my new home. I learned to see. Really see. I spent my afternoons in the darkroom, watching those stories come to life in the chemical baths. My evenings were for my new family, Amina, Hakeem and his children, and Osman, the restaurant owner who insisted on teaching me to cook and who always saved me the best table at his restaurant. I was learning Arabic badly, but everyone laughed with me, not at me. I was 60 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was alive. I was developing a photo of a young girl at the bazaar, her eyes sharp and full of fire, when my phone rang. The number was American. My heart did a familiar, painful flip. "Julian?" "Hello? Mrs. Morrison? Mrs. Paige Morrison?" The voice was professional, female. "This is Josephine Wallace. I'm an attorney with Walsh and Associates in Savannah." My blood ran cold. The house. My old life. "Yes? What about it?" "I represent the current owners of your former property. They're interested in selling." During the inspection, we discovered some irregularities with the title that require your signature to resolve. I sat down heavily in Clarissa's reading chair. "What kind of irregularities?" "It appears the property was transferred from your ex-husband without proper documentation of certain capital improvements made during your ownership. The new buyers are questioning the legitimacy of the sale. This could potentially void their purchase agreement. The improvements, the new kitchen, the master bath renovation, the landscaping, all paid for with my mother's inheritance. The money Robert had claimed was family money during the divorce. In his eagerness to erase me and cash in, Robert had cut corners." "What would happen," I asked, my voice very calm, "if the sale was voided?" "The property would revert to its previous ownership status, given the circumstances." "Mrs. Morrison, you might have grounds to reclaim partial, if not full, ownership." I looked at the photograph of the girl in the developing tray. Her eyes were full of fire. "Ms. Wallace," I said, "I'm in Casablanca, but I want to pursue this. Whatever rights I have, I want to exercise them, every single one." The next few weeks were a flurry of international calls and scanned documents. Josephine Wallace was a shark, and I was grateful for it. "He's trying to intimidate us, Mrs. Morrison," she said over the phone one evening. "He's claiming you're mentally unstable and acting out of spite." "I may be acting out of spite, Ms. Wallace. Does that make my claim less legal?" I heard her smile. "Not at all. Legal is legal, regardless of motivation. He failed to get your signature on the transfer of assets you funded. He committed fraud. Period." Robert had made a mistake. A big, arrogant, costly mistake. What are our options? We can force a sale reversal, or we can force him to buy out your interest at its current full market value. Given the improvements you funded, your share would be significant. "Let's do that," I said. "Let's force him to buy me out. I want him to write the check." The call I'd been dreading and, if I'm honest, anticipating, came a week later. "Mom, where are you? Dad says you're trying to steal money from them." "Julian." His voice was a mix of panic and anger. I'm in Casablanca, Julian, and I'm not stealing anything. I'm reclaiming what was stolen from me. Casablanca? Like Africa? What are you doing there? This is crazy, Mom. You can't just run away and then try to destroy Dad's life from over there. Is that what he told you? That I'm destroying his life? Aren't you? He said you're trying to take the house. Livia is pregnant, Mom. They can't handle this kind of stress right now. Livia was pregnant. The woman who had stolen my husband was carrying what should have been my grandchild. The irony was suffocating. I took a deep breath. I looked out my window at the minarets glowing in the sunset. Congratulations, Julian. You're going to be a wonderful father. Don't change the subject. Will you just drop this, please? For me? For your grandchild? He was using my grandchild. His weapon, his tactics. I looked around my apartment, at the photographs on the wall, at the life I had built from the ashes, at the strength I had found in myself. No, Julian, I said, my voice calm and clear. I won't. The fight, it turned out, was just beginning. A week later, Josephine Wallace called. The usual fire in her voice was gone. We've hit a snag, Paige, a serious one. I gripped the phone. What is it? Robert's lawyers have filed a motion to have your claim dismissed. They're citing your history of mental instability. My what? They've submitted medical notes from a Dr. Matthews, notes from just before your separation. They paint a picture of a woman who is paranoid, delusional, and prone to wild accusations. They're framing this entire legal claim as vindictive harassment from a mentally compromised individual. The air left my lungs. Dr. Matthews, Robert's preemptive strike. He had been planning this for so long. Josephine, he faked that. He coached the doctor. He twisted my words. I believe you, Paige. The problem is, the judge doesn't. These are official medical records. Robert's team is arguing that you can't be trusted, that your inheritance was a delusion, and that Robert managed all finances because you were incapable. It's a smear campaign, and it's working. They've managed to get a temporary freeze on the proceedings. He was doing it again. He was gaslighting me from 5,000 miles away. He was using my own doctor's words to paint me as a lunatic and steal my money a second time. What do we do? I whispered. Honestly? Josephine sighed. Right now, we're stalled. Unless we can prove those medical notes are inaccurate, we're stuck. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I walked the streets of Casablanca, my camera untouched in my bag. He was going to win. Again. His lies were stronger than my truth. On the 4th day, my phone rang. It was Josephine. You are not going to believe this, she said. She was talking so fast I could barely understand her. What? What happened? I got a call this morning from Dr. Matthews. My heart stopped. Oh God, what did he say? He said he'd been following the case in the local Savannah paper. He said Robert's legal team had contacted him, asking for a more detailed statement about your paranoia. Josephine took a deep, shaky breath. And Dr. Matthews, God bless him, is an old-school physician who does not like being told what to do by lawyers. He got suspicious. He pulled his original, handwritten notes from your file. And his original notes, the ones he took during your appointment, are very different from the ones he typed up after Robert called him. The original notes just say, patient feels scattered, planning party, high stress. The official typed up notes, the ones Robert's lawyers have, are full of words like paranoid delusions, agitated, unfounded fears. So Robert called him after your appointment and framed your conversation, expressing his own deep concerns. Dr. Matthews, thinking he was dealing with a worried husband, typed up his notes reflecting that. But now, seeing it used in a court of law to strip you of your assets, he's realized he was played. What does this mean, Josephine? "It means," she said, and I could hear the shark-like grin in her voice, "that Dr. Matthews, of his own volition, has provided us with a sworn affidavit, an affidavit that includes his original handwritten notes and a detailed, scathing account of how Robert manipulated him into creating a false medical narrative. He has, in effect, just handed us the gun and the smoke. Robert didn't just commit fraud, Paige. He committed conspiracy. We don't just have a claim anymore. We have a kill shot." With the affidavit, Robert's entire case didn't just collapse. It evaporated. His lawyers, facing potential disbarment for knowingly using a falsified medical record, dropped him as a client. The judge lifted the freeze and sanctioned Robert for contempt of court. The settlement offers came fast and furious. "He's offering $50,000, Josephine called to tell me. "Decline it," I said. $75,000. He says it's his final offer. "Decline it. Paige, he's going to have to sell the house he's in now to pay this. Then he'd better sell it fast." "We wait. We want the full amount." The final call came on a Thursday evening. I was having dinner with Amina and Osman, celebrating my first small sale of a photograph to a local gallery. "Mrs. Morrison," Josephine said, "he's agreed, the full amount, $120,000. He wants to close this as quickly as possible." I looked around the dinner table, at these people who had become my chosen family, at this life full of warmth and laughter and possibility. "Accept it," I said. Later that evening, my phone rang again. "Julian. Dad had to liquidate part of his retirement account to pay you," he said. No preamble, no hello. His voice was dead. "He's 62, Mom. You might have cost him his ability to retire." I looked out at the lights of Casablanca. He cost himself that, Julian, when he chose to steal from me, when he chose to lie to a doctor to have me declared unstable, when he chose to cheat on me with your wife. There was a long silence. "I didn't create the situation," I said, my voice softer now. "I just refused to pretend it didn't happen." "So this is who you are now?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Someone who hurts people for revenge?" I considered his question. Was this revenge, or was it just justice? "This is who I've always been underneath, Julian," I said finally. "Someone who knows her own worth. Your father spent 32 years convincing me I didn't have any value beyond what I could do for him. It took losing everything to remember that wasn't true. I don't understand you anymore, Mom." "I know, honey, but I understand myself now, and for the first time, that's enough." After we hung up, I sat in the warm Moroccan air. The woman I used to be, the one who would have forgiven him, who would have signed the papers just to keep the peace, that woman was gone. The $120,000 would arrive in my bank account. I already knew what I'd do with it. Expand Clarissa's studio. Start workshops for other women, expatriates and locals, who were rebuilding their lives. The real victory wasn't the money. It was the knowledge that Robert's perfect new life with Livia had a crack in it. A $120,000 crack. A crack that would remind him every single day that the woman he discarded wasn't as powerless as he believed. 2 years passed. The ground floor of my building was no longer an empty space. It was my gallery. I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by my photographs. The exhibition was called Invisible Women. It was a collection of portraits of women across Casablanca who had rebuilt their lives. There was Farah, a 70-year-old widow who'd started her own spice-selling business after her children moved away. There was Miriam, a young woman who had fled an abusive marriage and was now one of the city's most sought-after textile designers. Each photograph told a story of resilience. And somehow, my own story had become woven into the collection. The opening reception was a success. Locals mixed with expatriates. Collectors chatted with curious neighbors. Amina, Osman, and Hakim's family were all there, beaming. As the evening wound down, I was thanking the last of the guests when Hakim approached me, an unusual expression on his face. "Madame Page," he said quietly, "there is someone here to see you, an American woman. She says she knows you." My heart stopped. I followed Hakim to the entrance. A familiar figure stood silhouetted against the streetlights. She looked different, older, thinner. She was holding the hand of a small child, a little boy with dark curly hair. It was Livia. "Hello, Paige," she said quietly. "My name, not Mom." Paige. "What are you doing here, Livia?" I kept my voice neutral. This was my space, my sanctuary. I needed to see you, to talk to you. She looked around the gallery at the photographs, at the evidence of the life I'd built. Her eyes were wide. "This is all yours?" "This is my son," she said, pushing the little boy forward slightly. "This is Julian Jr. We call him JJ. I looked at the child. He had my son's eyes. "What do you want, Livia?" I considered sending her away. The woman I had been 3 years ago would have been shattered by her presence, but looking at her now, I felt nothing. Just a mild curiosity. "There's a cafe down the street," I said, pulling the gallery gate closed. "We can talk there." The cafe was nearly empty. We sat at a small table. Livia ordered a coffee she didn't drink. "You look good, Paige," she said, and there was genuine surprise in her voice. "Happy." "I am happy." I don't know what I expected. Richard said you'd fallen apart, that you were barely surviving. "Richard says many things that aren't true," I said, sipping my tea. "You, of all people, should know that by now." Livia's face crumpled. "That's why I'm here." She was silent for a long moment. "He's not who I thought he was," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "The man I fell in love with, the one who made me feel so special, so chosen. That was an act." "What do you mean?" "After you left, after the divorce, after you took that money, he changed. Or maybe he just stopped pretending." She looked down at her hands. "He controls everything, Paige. Where I go, who I see. He monitors my phone. He tells me it's because he loves me, wants to protect me and JJ, but I feel like I'm disappearing." The irony was staggering. She had helped Robert destroy my life, and now she was discovering that the prize she'd won was a cage. "He controls Julian, too," she said. "He convinced Julian to merge his law practice with a firm Robert chose. He's isolated him. We're not happy, Paige. None of us." "What do you want from me, Livia?" I asked. "I want to know how you did it," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "How you survived. How you did all this." I studied her face. I saw myself 3 years ago, trapped and confused, but there was a crucial difference. I had been naive. Livia had been complicit. I found out who I was when everything I thought defined me was taken away, I said. I discovered I was never the problem. I was just the convenient target. "He made me believe you were bitter, jealous, and now I think you were trying to warn me." "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I don't know. I have no money of my own. He made sure I was dependent on him for everything." She looked at me, a desperate, pleading look. "How did you find the courage to leave?" I thought back to that day in the studio, the stolen folder, the race to the airport. I realized that being alone and free was better than being together and imprisoned, I said. "But Livia, you have to understand something. I can't save you." Her face fell. "You have to save yourself." She stared at me. I think I already have." "What?" "I'm not here to ask for help, Paige. I'm here to tell you I'm sorry, and to tell you I'm leaving him. I took JJ to visit my sister in Florida. Instead, I flew here. I have a friend in Marrakesh. I needed to see you. I needed to apologize for not believing you, for helping him. Your apology doesn't change what happened, I said gently, but it might help you figure out what happens next. She stood up, pulling her son close. I have to go. I have a train to catch. She paused at the cafe entrance. He tried to find your aunt's money after you left. He spent thousands on international lawyers. He never found it. It drove him crazy. I thought you should know. She walked out, her son's small hand in hers. 6 months later, I received a postcard. It wasn't from Livia, it was from San Francisco. The picture was of the Golden Gate Bridge. I turned it over. The handwriting was familiar. Mom, I'm in San Francisco. Livia left him. She and JJ are in Marrakesh. She told me everything. I'm starting my own practice, far away from him. I'd like to visit if you're open to it. Love, Julian. I held the postcard for a long time. He'd found his own way. Livia, in saving herself, had saved him too. She had given him permission to see the truth. I wrote back on a postcard featuring the Casablanca skyline at sunset. You're always welcome here. This is where broken things come to heal. 3 years after losing everything, I had gained something far more valuable. I had gained myself. I'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the doorway to the best thing. I'd learned that home isn't a place or a person. It's the peace you feel when you are finally, completely, gloriously yourself. And sitting on my balcony that evening, watching the Atlantic waves crash against the shore, I knew I was finally home. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.